So I keep telling us now, a parable only has one point to make, and then once you get it, all the violence vanishes. It's a kind of a form of literature. It can be very violent. Throw this guy outside, well, there'll be grinding of teeth and wailing and all that. Let all that go. What's the one point? We do know that a talent, it wasn't athletic ability or musical ability or anything like that, athletic ability. A talent was money. And we would say it was a big weight of money, like maybe a brick of gold. And it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. I read someplace it might be 50 or 75 years of wages, a lot of money. So just so we would get it, the first guy got $1 million to play with. The second guy got $500,000, and the third got $100,000. So it was, significant amount of change there. Everybody, he didn't get a penny. Everybody got quite a bit to do something with. And now I got a kick out of this. He said, the master says to the third guy who buried the $100,000, at least you could have put it in the bank and got it back with interest. See, well, this is my October bank return. You got these two? This happens to be my checking account. The interest paid on my checking account. Can you see what it says? What did I get back on my checking account? 3 cents. I got back 3 cents. So Jesus didn't know what the interest payments were in 2017 when he said that in the parable. I thought that was pretty good. But the idea is, I think the surprise is, we have to risk. You got to take a chance. You got to, so to speak, gamble. You can't go bury the talent. That, to me, is the surprise. You got to risk. And, of course, the parable is not talking about money. It's really talking about faith. That we have to risk. We got to use the faith. We have to exercise the faith. And if we don't exercise it, if we bury it, we can lose it. And I think a very good example, I can't do it now, but as a teenager, if you try to do a sit-up, now maybe you can do 10 or 20 sit-ups, but if you do it every night, then maybe after a month you'll be doing 50 sit-ups. See? The more you use the muscles, the more they strengthen. The more, or the same thing with jogging or running. The first time you go out, you probably can't do a half a mile, but if you keep doing it, pretty soon you're running the marathon. So if you use it, it strengthens and it multiplies. I think that's a fair assumption. If you don't use it, you can lose it. I've heard people say, well, I used to speak French, but I haven't used it in years. I've lost it. If you don't use it, you can lose it. No question about that. You can really lose it. And the same thing is true with our faith. If we exercise our faith, it will grow. If you want your faith to grow, you got to use it. You got to exercise it. And just being here tonight, we're exercising our faith. Being here together on this beautiful fall evening, we're exercising our faith. Hopefully, our faith will grow and multiply. But I want to just throw out a few things. Have you ever met anybody who so to speak, is exercising their faith, but they're in your face? They're really coming up and almost obnoxiously, do you believe in Jesus and do this and coming up and being very aggressive about it, and telling you what they believe, and you better believe what they believe, and it can be very obnoxious. And I don't think that's our style. I don't think that's Pope Francis's style. I don't think it's our style as Catholics to be that abrasive. It's a much more by living the faith that we exercise it and spread the faith, and our own faith grows as we do it. But I just want to throw out a few ideas, just a few ideas. I'm sure there are many more. Thanksgiving. You know, we're celebrating Thanksgiving this Thursday as a nation. Whom are we thanking? Now, really, whom are we thanking? If you go back to the original Pilgrims, they're thanking God. If you go back to the address by President Washington or the address by President Lincoln, they mention God every other paragraph, every other sentence. They're thanking God. And I just think, without being obnoxious, when the topic of Thanksgiving comes up this week, we can say, well, we have so much to thank God for. Just say that. We have so much to be thankful to God. God's been so good to us. We can thank God. Just in our conversation, see? There's so much we can do in thanking God. Even in our everyday language, when you say to someone, goodbye, you know what that is? It's a contraction of God be with you. Can you see that? Goodbye, God be with you. Well, you could say that to somebody, God be with you, or God bless you. You just say it in conversation. Or how often when someone is hurting and they're upset, instead of saying, well, you're in my thoughts, we can say, you're in my prayers tonight. I'll pray for you. You're exercising the faith. You're letting people know that you're a faithful person. Or in your home, you can have a crucifix in your home or a statue of Mary. So when someone comes into your home, they know that this is a house of faith. People of faith live here. And I notice Bob here has a beautiful crucifix. He's wearing it. A beautiful crucifix. Many people do that. That's beautiful. When they see the crucifix or a cross, or altar servers are wearing crosses. Many of our young people will wear a cross. Just letting people know that I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I'm a Catholic. You're exercising the faith, see, in a very gentle way. Most of all, of course, is by the way we live, by the way we treat people. If we're kind to them, if we're merciful to them. But I just think it's important that we just use correct language and let people know that we love them and we're praying for them and God loves them. Exodus. See Exodus? Exit? You see the word exit? It comes right out of the Bible. It means to go forth, to go out. The Jewish people went out of slavery. So it's in our everyday life, folks. It's in our everyday life. Now, then in a month, Christmas is coming. And we have a choice. We can send a card. This is Frosty the Snowman. There he is. There's Frosty the Snowman. There he is. And wishing you a holiday that's happy and bright. All right, man, that's okay. But what a difference. Peace and love this Christmas. Can you hear the word Christmas? Christ Mass. The Mass of Christ. It comes right out of here, folks. It comes right out of the Catholic Mass. Christmas, the Mass of Christ. May love and friendship light up your Christmas and bring you joy in the new year. What a difference. Sorry, Frosty, but I mean, that's what it's about. But just in a very gentle way, exercising our faith, not being afraid to mention God, to mention Jesus, to mention Christmas. When someone says, have a good holiday, say, Merry Christmas to you too. You do that? I do it all the time. Have a good holiday. Merry Christmas to you too. Right now, see, don't be afraid of doing that. Just try it. I just think it's so important that we not just express our faith inside the church, but gently by the way we live. Now, I'm switching gears here totally. You know, on the way to sainthood, a saint is someone who's canonized a saint. The step before that is to be beatified. They're called blessed. For example, for years it was Blessed Catherine Drexel before she became Saint Catherine Drexel. Blessed Elizabeth Seton. Then she became Saint Elizabeth Seton. Well, we have two American men. Two American men who have been beatified. Two American men who are now blessed. And the first, in September in Oklahoma City, this is a young priest from Oklahoma. Anybody here from Oklahoma? Anybody? Okay. But his name is Stanley Rother. Stanley Rother. And he, interestingly enough, he was sent to Maryland, to Mount St. Mary's Seminary, where Elizabeth Ann Seton founded her religious order, the Sisters of Charity. And that seminary, the vice rector is Tony Frontiero, Father Dick's good friend and Father Ham's good friend. He's the vice rector now, and the seminary is packed, it's full. So Stanley Rother went to Mount St. Mary's. He was ordained in 1963 for Oklahoma. And then Oklahoma had a mission in Guatemala, and he volunteered, and he spent the rest of his priesthood working, learned Spanish, of course. He learned the native language of the people, the Native Americans there, and was doing great work, helping. He was a farmer. He knew agriculture. He started a radio station. He started catechesis. Very, very effective. And then there was a civil war in Guatemala, and the military government went after anybody helping the poor. And he went home to Oklahoma, and they said, please don't go back. Don't go back. No, he went back. Those are my people. He went back, and he was assassinated. He was killed in 1981 in the rectory. And many of the religious teachers, education teachers, the catechists were killed, 13 priests were killed, 200,000 people were killed. But Pope Francis, this is an interesting expression. I've never heard of it. A martyr, a martyr for the faith. You've heard that expression, a martyr for the faith. Pope Francis says that he is a martyr in hatred of the faith. That these people hated the Christian faith, and he's a martyr in hatred of the faith. It was an act of hate and hatred of the faith that killed him. But anyway, he is now Blessed Stanley Rother. Okay? That's great. Now, that was September the 23rd, and today in Detroit, Michigan, we have a new blessed, a Franciscan priest, a Capuchin priest, like Padre Pio was a Capuchin priest, and his name is Solanus Casey. He's from Wisconsin, born in Wisconsin. And I know, Bert Eising, you're from Wisconsin. Marie, I think you're from New York. But I was thinking, Bill and Jan Clemmy are from Wisconsin. Jim and Carol O'Rourke are from Wisconsin. And here's an Irish-American, Solanus Casey. I was thinking of Jim O'Rourke, an Irish-American from Wisconsin. But he interesting guy, he only went to the 8th grade. Only went to the 8th grade, grew up very poor, and he couldn't do very well academically. And this was back in 1903. I don't think they do it today, but they said, okay, Solanus, we'll ordain you a priest, but you can't preach and you can't hear confessions. You can just bless people and pray and say Mass. He said, well, wonderful, I'll take it. And so it was called a simplex, a simple priest. Okay? And they put him in charge of the door at the monastery. The guy was a healer. He would heal people. He would pray for people, and miracles were happening. And all his life, he worked mostly in New York and then in Detroit. Hundreds of people, he went 16, 17 hours a day, they would come to him asking him to pray. Would you pray for my husband? Would you pray for my wife? Would you pray for my sick daughter? And he would. And miracles happened. Solanus Casey, and he died at 87 years old in 1957. So you figure Stanley Rother was killed in 1981, and Solanus Casey died in 1957. See, these are contemporaries. Isn't it beautiful that God's raising up saints in our midst? Saints aren't somebody from the past. Saints are present in our midst. So I just think it's great. I think it's wonderful that we're having Americans who are being beatified and hopefully canonized.